Welcome, I'll be reacting to Outlander, Season 6, Episode 2. This is not a market substitute, support the original. This must be difficult for Ian, thinking about his wife.
We want more guns.
Trade goods is certain. The guns are a different matter.
Because our war is with those who cross the treaty line. They build houses, plant crops, take game from our hunting grounds.
If the king cannot keep his people where they belong, how can he protest when we defend our land?
Soul bear killer.
Exactly. I mean, it's such a reasonable request. This is our land. Keep your people off of it, or we'll defend it. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Oh, this is how all the mess started. This is going to be tough to watch, knowing what's going to happen. The church. Fergus, put that down. Yes! Oh. But what are you doing on a red coat?
Then we can see about mending that right hand of yours.
I've decided that I shall leave this hand as it is.
No.
Why?
Stop being stubborn.
If this infirmity be God's will, then so be it.
This is a common argument. This terrible thing happened. It must be God's will. Okay, first of all, no, God doesn't go around doing that. And secondly, he also, using that same logic, brought you Claire, who can fix it. So maybe it's God's will that she fixes it, right? He also created her with these gifts and the opportunity to learn how to fix it.
I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
Clearly, St. Paul also met a woman he couldn't out-argue. No, better to put a stopper on the entire sex than to win your point fairly.
He'll come round. Keep working on him, Claire.
Two of them, Uncle. The other one's
Two?
waiting her turn. And a privilege to...
Madam, cease. The two of you. You're very beautiful, but
I told them that the Creator came to you in a dream and instructed you that you mustn't lie with a woman until you've brought guns to Chief Bart. Well, at least I hope I did.
until I what?
It's the best I could think of in a hurry, Uncle.
Ian was enjoying himself way too much there.
You'd be advised to stifle your glee.
What are they doing out there?
One day it is highway robbers, the next it's sailors, or worse, pirates.
I mean, who didn't play pirates as a kid?
Now we're going to check Marcelly's pulse.
Still Fergus.
And you do that by locating the blood vessel below the thumb. Is everything all right between the two of you? I've noticed some more bruising. But I do think you should come up to the big house and stay with us, so I can keep a closer eye on you.
Probably a good idea.
He's taken a notion that he should have been there to defend us.
Yeah, he blamed himself for that.
How could it be his fault when he wasn't there? But he will to hear it.
I think I have a headache coming on, that's all.
Oh no, she's gonna go do some ether again. I have a feeling this is struggling with addiction season. Claire, you know, of all people, this is a coping mechanism. It's not good for you.
I'm going to make matches. I know how in theory, and I'll be careful. Promise.
Matches! I love it.
Hiram wants a quick funeral. Tom's asked me to do it since their minister's been delayed.
You know, Roger did a really good job at that other funeral. And his father, I mean, for all practical purposes, his father was a minister. And he has the right disposition for it as a teacher. What if he becomes the new minister? Just a thought, throwing it out there. I mean, people always seem to go to him when they need things, like right here. They needed someone to be the celebrant at the funeral. And they're about to have a church. What a beautiful horse.
Now, Mr. Sassenach, I must have you.
Oh no. Right now.
Now?
Aye. Do you remember from your books If the Cherokees side with the Loyalists or the rebels.
I'm sorry. My knowledge of American history isn't that extensive.
As I recall, because the settlers kept crossing treaty lines, building where they weren't supposed to, hunting on the wrong land, and basically treating the Cherokee horribly, they ended up siding with the British. I assume to prove their loyalty and hoping that after the war, they would be given more respect and the treaties and the lands would be back to being theirs again and no longer ignored. But of course, we know who won the American Revolution, and I'm pretty sure a large expedition went into North Carolina and basically just bulldozed their way through, causing enormous havoc in the area, basically devastating the Cherokee and the British, of course. I think some of the younger people kept fighting even after the war was officially over because they were like, this is our home, we're going to fight for it until the end. Some of the older people were like, well, we lost, let's try and make the best of it. They gave away huge amounts of land for nothing. It was bad. It was really bad. I think most of that happened in 1776, 3 years from what's going on here. So not too far in the distant future. So the question is, in Outlander world, will Jamie be the one who convinced them to fight on the side of the British? That could be really awkward. He'd be semi-responsible for, oh my. That would be an interesting storyline in a terrible way. He somehow needs to convince them not to fight with the British, to save them. If they could at least remain neutral, they'd have a chance. So bad.
But no question what a man might need to defend himself, but once again, I'm wrestling with my conscience.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't provide them with weapons, then...
Then they may decide to fight alongside the rebels. Why me?
Maybe that'd be a good thing.
If I do give them guns, they'll likely fight with a crown.
Yeah, gotta stop that.
Richard Brown would have made a terrible Indian agent.
We can agree on that.
They fought with us against the French.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we get a better idea of what's to come when we look at what's gone by.
Indeed.
But it seems they are undecided as to what they want.
And what do you think they want?
Ian, don't get involved.
But are you suggesting that we send soldiers?
Not soldiers. Forgive me, Uncle. But they did say what they wanted.
Diplomacy, Ian.
Have you a cat, Colonel?
Ah.
Yeah, we had so.
That's why Adso was on the red coat.
The royal provinces will unite to become a new nation. But they'll have no king. Player is certain of that.
Those loyal to the crown will lose.
Mm-hmm.
And that they live evermore with
alive.
thee. And that thy mercy endureth.
Up here. What devilry is this?
Pulse is weak. She has minutes at most.
Stole it for your own, they do.
Stole it? Have I not given you a home these past 20 years?
I'll not have this. It's not fitting, and I'll not have it.
I forgive you, Hiram. You've been a good lad.
There we go.
We have some exciting news.
Well, more Brianna than...
Matches?
You're with child. Oh, I don't envy Brie, but I'm very happy for you both.
A toast!
It's just matches. Yeah.
Flint, is it? Well, no, it's easier than flint. They're called matches. They're easier to light, it's faster, and they hold the flame. You can take them with you and light a fire wherever you go.
I never had trouble lighting a fire.
Well, Mr. Christie must have been impressed anyway. He's asked if I might preach the sermon on Sunday.
Yes, please.
As a lay minister, of course.
He did?
He grew up with his father working on sermons. Surely he picked up a few tips.
Mrs. Wilson's rising from the dead. Some of the new settlers think that I am a witch.
Well, I mean...
And that doesn't bother
you are.
Help me get to the surgery.
Oh, no. If something goes wrong, they're going to blame Claire, and that will be very terrible timing for the recent accusation. Maybe this will be enough to snap Fergus out of it. Hopefully.
She wants you.
Go, Roger.
She needs you.
See what he's doing right here? This is what a minister would do. He's basically already acting minister. Like, just make it official, you know?
Pull yourself together and be the man that Marsley thinks you are, the man that you promised her you'd be.
Ooh.
Even if you have to pretend.
Thank you, Roger. Oh, the kitty's there. Stay. Good, Anso.
Don't be letting Mistress Fraser be doing any autopsies on me. It would be as well that I write to my mother.
Marsley, you're going to be all right. And I will do everything in my power to make that so.
Are we close, Marsley?
I think I'm gonna die.
All women think it.
Aye. That's because a great many of them do.
That's what the wee bugger's up to, then
We're gonna go for a walk.
some post needs sorting.
Bree is hilarious. There better be water in there.
Papa?
Bonsoir, monsieur.
Monsieur?
Monsieur.
What's wrong?
Fergus. Fergus. Means he's a dwarf.
Oh, yeah. Like Tyrion.
Apparently, the only worthwhile thing I can do is get pregnant.
Yeah.
Watch the stick very closely.
How did you do that? It's a miracle.
It's not a miracle, lad. It's science.
This should be interesting.
This is not the last you'll see of us, Bear Killer.
I know. I mean, he might be trying to force history to change, and that's never really worked very well on this show. I feel like they're going to join the Redcoats anyway.
If that is their fate, then they deserve every chance to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you will only help them, then I will.
Where do you expect to find guns for them?
Oh my. I can see Ian's reasoning, though. They do deserve every chance.
I'm glad to see you've kept God first, but you won't have forgotten your Freemason's vow, will you? Then let this be a meeting house. A place where every man, woman, and child may enter freely, with God in their hearts.
Every man, woman, and child.
Aye.
Including Claire.
My wife too, Tom.
Drawing a line in the sand there. I mean, it's a reasonable line, but it was still a bit of a threat there.
Mistress McNeil brought us some ale, Father. Would you like some?
I don't want ale. I want milk.
I didn't do anything.
See, maybe hurting your family like that isn't God's will.
His name is Henri Christian.
Ah,
I had the child.
he changed his mind, didn't he? Because of Ian.
You've decided to pass along Chief Bird's request for weapons.
I'm recommending we do as they ask. The Cherokee will have their guns. To do with them as they please.
Leave the decision up to them.
He fights for them because they are his family.
Yeah,
And my allegiance is to him.
well put.
I think it's the right thing to do.
There is just so much going on this season. So many threads. But the main one I think they covered for this episode as the theme was what Jamie should do with his new role as liaison to the Indigenous people. Because of the horrible stuff that they're going to be going through soon, what's the best thing to do? What can he do in his position? Knowing what's coming, at least a little bit. But I mean, Roger of all people should know because he knew the general time period he was going into and the location. He waited long enough, I think, to shave his beard and sort out a wardrobe. If I was going after Brianna like that, I would probably have also taken maybe 2 or 3 days to grab every single book on the time period in that geographic area as I could and just studied up on it. And then I'm always commenting on this, but the lack of pockets and bags when they're going through the stones, really? He didn't even bring a book bag with like reference materials? We also may have a problem with Claire and the accusations of witchcraft, especially with everything going on. And then making sure that the church turns into more of a meeting place / schoolhouse / church. I mean, that is what Jamie needed to do. However, when he was being really firm about it, he also may have made, or rather reactivated, an enemy. So I still hold to my theory that I think Roger should take over as the minister, because he was really good at calming things down, and I feel like he could use that if the ridge starts getting fractured. And especially once Jamie openly announces that we're supporting the rebels now, I could see that there would be loyalists on the ridge who would not follow him, especially if there are already infighting groups on the ridge. So that could be really bad. It could be an internal ridge war rather than everyone just jumping behind Jamie and trusting him. And then of course we have Brianna, who's getting more and more frustrated with this time period. Even though she's inventing these cool things, everyone only cares whether or not she's having a child. And I feel that frustration. And what's interesting is I'm kind of getting the impression that now she kind of wishes they had gone back to the future. Whereas Roger, ironically, is starting to fit in now. Like before she wanted to stay, he wanted to go, and now it's she kind of wants to leave and he wants to stay a little bit. It's an interesting dynamic shift. But so far, this is all so complex. I'm just like, there's so much going on. I mean, Fergus, obviously, freaking out about having Tyrion Lannister as his son, basically. Whatever, Fergus, we are already upset with you. Obviously, Marsley and Ian are getting a lot closer. I'm just glad she survived. There was a part of this episode where I was like, we are going to lose Marsley. That was scary. If I was going to compare Outlander to wine, last season was like a really bold Cabernet from Napa, really fruit forward, very tannic. You take a sip and you're like, whoa, it's like getting kicked in the head, but really good. This season, more like a Barbera or a Pinot Noir, very complex. I mean, you take a small sip and you're just basking in the complexities of the flavor for an hour afterward. Like, I'm getting blackberry. Now I'm getting currants. Now I'm getting dark cherry. Now I'm getting earthy. Like, it just goes on and on. If you were writing tasting notes, it'd be like 10 pages long versus bold, fruit forward, done for last season. And I like both. But so far, this one is just so much to unpack. I'm very impressed.